Oh hey, didn't see you there. Hello, I'm here to tell you today about evolution and my trip through the Galapagos Islands. On February 12th, I was born. I always had an intense love of nature, and then when my father enrolled me in Cambridge University, I departed from Europe to South America and eventually the Galapagos Islands to study nature there. I finally made it to the Galapagos Islands, and I am ready to start studying nature. Oh boy, look at that big long-necked tortoise over there. It's perfectly adapted to eating plants off of the tops of trees. Oh boy. Now you see, we also see some short-necked tortoises like over there. He is not adapted to eating food off the tops of trees and has to climb up on mounds to reach the tops. He and his generations are about to die off. Well, you see, the Galapagos Islands also had a very diverse population of iguanas, some of which had round tails like this one, which did not provide for very well mobility in water. In addition to the round-tailed iguanas, we also had the flat-tailed iguanas, which were much better adapted to swimming, which made them a more adaptive organism and more likely to survive as they were more amphibious. Hello there! Now you see, as I was collecting my observations, I wrote them into a book, my 1959 publication, The Origin of Species. You know, it was truly groundbreaking and very controversial, and was one of the biggest advances in modern biology in history. In my book, The Origin of Species, I outlined my famous theory of evolution by natural selection. For example, a giraffe is born. All giraffes have small necks, but one is born with an extraordinarily long neck. That giraffe is better suited for survivability and reproduction because its access to food is more abundant. Now, that giraffe survives and mates because it is better suited, but other giraffes die because they don't get the food. Now, you see, over time, the giraffe population shifts, and eventually, the majority of them all have long necks. Now, you see, I witnessed this in the Galapagos Islands in my finches, my tortoises, and my marine iguanas because of how they evolved and the population shifted.
The natural selection variation is how many organisms in a population are of the same phenotype. So here we have an average which favors the neutral phenotype in the middle. For stabilizing selection, the average sort of grows and it stays the same, so it picks the average. For directional selection, the average moves to one of the extremes phenotypes, so it would move over like that. And for disruptive selection, the phenotypes that are chosen are two extremes, and the middle one is chosen against, so it looks sort of like this.
Prezygotic barriers prevent mating or fertilization between species. Temporal isolation is breeding at different times or seasons. The one animal is awake while the other is asleep. Behavioral isolation is the failure to send or receive appropriate signals. Both of these animals have the same dance, thus they can interact and mate with each other. These two animals have different dances, thus they cannot interact and mate. Mechanical isolation is the physical incompatibility of reproductive parts. The human and the tree parts are not compatible. The male and female parts are compatible. Gametic isolation is the molecular incompatibility of egg and sperm, or pollen and stigma. These two organisms both have the same molecular compatibility.
Now you see the bottleneck effect would be if this population, which has equal numbers of blue, yellow, and black organisms, experienced a catastrophic event in which most of the organisms were killed, and the remaining population did not have an equal number of phenotypes of each gene. So you have a population of yellow organisms, but as soon as one black organism is introduced into the population, the genes shift, and over time you see more and more black organisms until the population has a great number of black organisms. This is called gene flow.
The Hardy-Weinberg principle is no matter how many times alleles are segregated into different gametes and united in different combinations by fertilization, the frequency of each allele in the gene pool will remain constant unless other factors are operating. The equation is p squared plus 2pq plus q squared equals 1. P squared represents the frequency of homozygous dominants, 2pq represents the frequency of heterozygotes, and q squared represents the frequency of homozygous recessives. For a population to be in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, it must satisfy 5 main conditions. The first of these conditions is random mating. If individuals mate preferentially, such as with close relatives, random mixing of gametes does not occur and genotype frequencies change. The next is no natural selection. This is the unequal survival and reproductive success of individuals which can alter allele frequencies. The next is no mutations. These are, by changing alleles or deleting or duplicating genes, mutations modify the gene pool. Next is no gene flow. Between populations, when individuals move into or out of populations, they add or remove alleles, altering the gene pool. And the last is no genetic drift. Allopatric speciation is a population separated by a geographic barrier. This population of gray shirt organisms is living normally until a barrier is placed between them, thus separating the population, creating two allopatric populations. Taxonomy is a system of naming and classifying species. This was introduced by Carolus Linnaeus. To avoid confusion, biologists assign each species a two-part scientific name, or binomial. The first part is the genus, a group of closely related species. The second part is the species, which is a more narrowed down version of the genus. In addition to naming species, Linnaeus also grouped them into a hierarchy of categories. Beyond the grouping of species within genera, the Linnaean system extends to progressively broader categories of classification. It places related genera in the same family, puts families into orders, orders into classes, classes into phyla, phyla into kingdoms, and kingdoms into domains. An example of this would be the wolf. Its domain is Eukarya. Its kingdom is Animalia. Its phylum is Chordata. Its class is Mammalia. Its order is Carnivora. Its family is Canidae. Its genus is Canis, and its species is Canis lupus. About 250 million years ago, near the end of the Paleozoic era, plate movements brought all the previously separated landmasses together into a supercontinent we call Pangaea, meaning all land. When the landmasses fused, ocean basins became deeper, lowering the sea level and draining the shallow coastal seas. Then, as now, most marine species inhabited shallow waters, and much of that habitat was destroyed. The interior of the vast continent was cold and dry. Overall, the formation of Pangaea had a tremendous impact on the physical environment and climate. At first, Pangaea split into the northern and southern landmasses, which we call Laurasia and Gondwana, respectively. By the end of the Mesozoic era, some 65 million years ago, the modern continents were beginning to take shape. Note that at that time, Madagascar became isolated, and India was still a large island. Then, around 45 million years later, the India plate collided with the Eurasian plate, and the slow, steady buckling at the plate boundary formed the Himalayas, the tallest and youngest of Earth's mountain ranges. The continents continue to drift today, and the Himalayas are still growing, about 1 centimeter per year.